So tonight I am going to be working on hip opening and glute activation, which you know now because I posted that up earlier on in the week. So in order to take away that stiffness that I know some of you have through the hip socket, we need to create balance through the posterior chain as well. So ideally, if you have a block like this, or if you have one of the rollers, the short one or the long one, that will be helpful for what we're doing today, but you can still get along without it. But if you happen to have them, just bring it to your mat because it will be helpful for you. So we're going to start by creating some release and opening through the hip flexors. We're going to start in a square box position on all fours. So we're getting into that position. We're going to decide what works best for our wrists. Is it flat out or is it up on the fist? So whichever works best for you, you're going to get into that position. We want to line up the heel of the hands with the knees. So we're getting that nice square box. And we're going to start by just doing a little pelvic tilt. So we're going to tuck the tailbone under and then we're going to press the tailbone out. So small little movement to begin getting that action and that space into the lumbar spine. Eye gaze can look to the top of the mat and pressing. So we're going to go for another 4. Push it out. Inhale as you scoop the tail under. Exhale as you press the tail away. 2 more. And press. And last one. And pressing the tail away. Now from here we're going to start to draw circles around the knees and the wrists. So we're creating some movement into our hip socket, into our shoulder socket here. Maybe pressing into all 5 tips of each finger. Good. And we can make this range of circles. You can make it quite big. Or if you're minding your wrist, you might keep it a smaller space so that you don't weight bear too strongly on the wrist. You're going to remember to reverse now, go into the opposite direction. And we'll go for another 4 circles. 3, 2, and 1 more. Well done. Okay, now we're going to drop back into the heels. And then on the exhale, drag the heel of the hands back towards your knees and pull your body forward. So as you drop back here, you're closing the hip socket. And then as you pull forward, you're opening through the anterior part of the hip. So you're sending the head of the thigh bones back into the pelvis. And then as we press down, butt to heels, we're sending the thigh bone into the front of the hip socket. So there's a distribution or a different orientation of the head of the femur in the hip socket here. So it's not very obvious how this would help the hip, but that's how it helps the hip. Just changing the orientation of the bone from front to back. We're going to go for another 4. There's also an aspect happening here through your shoulder joint as well. And 3. 2 more. And final one, dropping back. And coming forward. Well done. From here, we're going to step our right foot out in front. We're going to walk our hands up to the top of our knees. We're going to think of the hip bones of the back pockets being parallel to the top of our mat. So we know that our hips aren't swinging out towards the side. So just bring the hands to the back pockets. Think about pressing the hips forward so you've got even line with both hands. Then we can bring the hands to the front knee, and we're going to just gently lean forward, so we're getting a stretch in this back leg. So we don't want the back leg to be 90 degrees. You always want that back leg to lean forward so it's at an oblique line. Yeah. And then we hold that position as we breathe in and out. This can be where the yoga block is helpful, because you can place it behind your ankle. You can have it on the high level or the low level. Have your two hands on it, if that makes it easier to hold into that position rather than being up high. And of course the same goes for the roller. You can have your hands on the roller depending on the height that you have. We're going to breathe for 3, breathe for 2, breathe for 1, and then slowly drop back. Straighten out the front leg, pull the toes up towards your nose. And again, a useful place to have your block or your roller. Otherwise, you can have your hands on the floor, maybe one hand on the wall, one hand on the thigh, and just leaning the chest forward may also be enough for you. And we'll hold for 3, for 2, for 1, and then slowly rock forward through the front leg. Put 2 hands either side of your front foot, slide your front foot back, and then we'll switch sides going to the opposite side. So taking the second foot out in front, lifting up nice and high, and then just leaning forward, allowing that stretch to happen through the front of the hip, and then we breathe in and out as we hold that stretch. And on each exhale, we're thinking of the head of the femur sinking further forward in the socket, so we're getting again that openness through the front of the hip. And we'll take another 3 breaths. We breathe in. Exhale, softening it. Breathing in. And soften. One more breath, breathing in. And softening out. Slowly start to walk the hands back to the middle of the mat, drawing back so that we can pull that heel towards the butt. We're allowing the body to lean forward. We don't have to be really low down here, so you can be quite high up and leaning into that space. You're still going to feel that stretch into the back of your thigh, into the hamstring. Breathe 3, breathe 2, breathe 1, and then we'll slowly release it out. From here, we're going to lie onto our back. So we're rolling down, letting the head rest onto the mat. So for this one, if you tend to put something underneath your head, don't do it for this one, because we're working with the bridge for this one. So the bridge is the only exercise where you wouldn't have anything behind your head. So you're going to draw the heels back towards your thighs. We're going to press our elbows into the floor. And we're going to rock our pelvis back and then slowly start to peel the spine up. So as we lift the hips up, we're getting this stretch, this openness all across the front of the hips. We breathe in there, and then we exhale, slowly lower everything back down into the floor, releasing the pelvis out. We're going to try and keep the contact between the big toes and the little toes. So we're inhaling, exhale, roll, lift to peel. Inhale to hold, and exhale to lower it down. Breathing in, roll and rise. And this is what it's all about, that rise. Thinking about your front pockets opening. You can think about reaching the knees to the end of the mat as well, and that will create elongation through the thighs. Breathe it in and soften it down. Inhale. Exhale back and rise. Hold. And lowering down. Releasing the hips out of the bottom each time, so we come back to neutral each time. Again, rock it back, push into your elbows. Peel and rebound the hips up. Taking an inhale breath there, and then exhale, slowly release everything back down into the floor, releasing the pelvis. We're going to take one more of those breaths. Breathe it in. Exhale, roll back, lift and peel. Inhale on the top. And exhale to lower everything back down into the floor. Okay, if you have a roller or if you have a block, I'm going to show you a way to stretch the hip flexor using that piece of equipment. If you don't have either of those, I'm going to ask you to turn onto your side like this and then just take the heel in the direction of the butt. So you're getting a stretch up through the quad, and it's having an impact on the rec fem muscle, which also crosses the hip. If you have one of those two items that I just mentioned, you're going to either slide the block or the roller underneath your pelvis. So it's underneath, kind of between your spine and your sacrum. So it's sort of, the waistband is not the best guideline, because everybody's waistbands can be different, but it's not in the curve of your back. It's going to just slightly below the curve of your back. And then the same with the block. You have actually three choices of what distance you want the block to be on. So it can be flat like this, it can be up on its widest edge like this, or it can be up on its narrowest edge like this. So if you're using the block, you're either going to go flat between those same points. It's not in the arc of the back, it's lower down between the lowest part of the back and the sacrum, or else you can flip it up so it's now on its widest length, so it's kind of level 2, or else if you've tight hips, you're definitely not going to go up to level 3. So level 3 kind of pushes you up here, but if you've tight hips, you're not going to be up there anyway. So choose one of those options. So roller or block. And obviously if you don't have a block, you're working on the quad I showed you. So we're just staying in this position. So by virtue of being elevated up, it's opened up the crease of the hip here. So the hands can come down by your side, and you're just going to focus whether you're in the side quad stretch or you're in this position. Focus on your breath. So we just breathe it in and exhale it out. And as you're breathing in, imagine you're filling up the belly with air. So you're inhaling and lifting up the ribs, lifting up the belly, almost inflating the front pockets, and then exhaling out. Breathing in and exhaling out. Breathe in and out. Taking 2 more, breathe it in and out. And last one, breathe it in and exhale it out. Now if you're lying on your side doing the quad stretch, you're going to turn to the other side now, so you get to open up the other side. When we're lying on the block, the nice thing about the block is we get to open up 2 hips at the same time. So again, we're just going to stay here while some of you are stretching in through the quad on the opposite side. We're all just focusing on that inhaling. And if you're on the block or the roller, you're really trying to focus on actually surrendering into the block or the roller. So you might notice this time that you're starting to let maybe the butt muscles go, or you're starting to let tension go in the back. So you really just want to take the support that the block is giving us. We're going to take 3 more breaths. And 2 more. And last one, breathing in. And exhaling out. Now it's very important if you're on a block or a roller to come off it correctly. So you push into your feet to rebound your hips, and then you just remove whatever is underneath there, and then roll yourself down back onto the floor, releasing the pelvis. Now for everyone, lie back onto your back again. You're going to do a few pelvic tilts here. So you're going to rock your low back into the mat, and then you're going to gently, slowly release. And as you create these pelvic tilts, you should feel a lot of freedom around the pelvis now, around the lumbar spine after what we've done. We're going to do 2 more, drawing the belly in. And then last one. And slowly releasing. Okay, so now after all that opening through the front of the hip, we want to create a balance now by strengthening the back of the body, particularly into the glutes. So we're going to come onto the all fours position again. If we're minding our wrists and you have a roller, you can come down onto the roller like this, or you can use your block, or maybe you have 2 blocks, and then the elbows are down onto the block like that. Otherwise, stay onto all fours. We're going to straighten out our right leg, and then we're going to lift the right leg so it's in line with our hip. Now I want you to exhale, curl the heel to the bum, and then slowly release it away. As you're curling the heel to the bum, imagine you're pulling your heel, or there's something heavy on your ankle, and you've really got to pull that heel hard in towards the butt. We're trying to influence the hamstrings, the back of the thigh, as we curl in and release. Or you could imagine a band on the end of the foot, and as you draw the heel in, you're pulling through the resistance of the band. We're going to exhale for another 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 more. Pull it in, slowly release the knee, drop your bum back in the direction of your heels, and just take a moment here as you breathe in and out, letting the back body open, taking some weight off the kneeling leg that was supporting you. Then come forward again, shifting out the second leg. We're going to lift that leg up, and then we exhale, heel to bum and lengthen away. Heel to bum and lengthen out. And curl. We're going to go for another 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And then slowly rest it, dropping back into the heels. Just taking a moment there. Now from here, we're going to come right down onto our tummy. So we come down onto the tummy, and we're going to place our arms just out by the sides. So you have one palm on top of the other, so it's like you're creating a pillow for your head to rest on. You're going to separate your knees as wide as the mat. Then you're going to bend your knees and take the heels together. So the toes are apart and the heels are together. You're going to imagine there's a blueberry in between your heels. And as your head rests onto your hands, You're going to exhale, squeeze the heels together, and then slowly release it out. Squeezing the heels together and gently releasing. Exhale, squeeze. And squeeze. So as we're pressing the heels, you want to feel there's an influence happening in your butt muscles. So as you squeeze the heels, if you don't feel the butt is responding, try and actively squeeze it and get it yourself as well. So bring your attention into that area. So we're going to go for 4, 3, 2, and 1 more. Squeezing in. Releasing out. Then we're going to turn onto our side and we're going to have our knees bent. Heels are going to line up with our butt, and then we're going to lift the top knee so it's in line with what's in front of you. And now we're going to start to draw circles that's parallel to what's in front of you. So imagine the thigh bone is circling in the hip socket. And circling. We're going 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Brilliant. Reverse, go the other way. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Well done. Resting down. Let that leg go out in front. We'll just straighten out the bottom leg. We'll do a little bit of inner thigh work while we're just in this position, letting that lateral hip just relax out. And we exhale as we lift the bottom leg up, super long and straight. And lifting. And rise. Go for another 4, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now remember the leg that you just that you worked here, this top leg where you're doing circles. So for me, it's my left leg. So you're going to turn onto your back. We're going to grab a band. If you don't have a band, don't worry about it. You can do it without a band. So ideally, if you have a band and you have tight hips, it's better to use the band than not the band. So elbows are in by your side. The leg is straight to where it's comfortable for you. And then we're going to draw those circles on the ceiling. Bring your attention right into your hip socket. Imagine that you're trying to access every corner of that hip. Well, corner isn't the right word because the hip socket is like a bowl. So imagine you're trying to kind of create a contact with all the surface of the bowl with your thigh bone, like a wooden spoon scraping the sides of a bowl. So we're looking for that circular motion, that articulation between the thigh bone and the hip socket. We're going to do 1 more, and you're just simply mimicking this move without the band if you don't have a band. And circling. We're going 5, 4, 3, 2, and last one circle. And then slowly let that leg come out to the side. If you have a band, get a little stretch onto the inner groin. If you don't have a band, you're going to let your foot come to the floor and let the knee fall out to the side. You'll still get a stretch, so it looks like this on this side. You'll still get a stretch onto the inner groin that way. It's a little bit easier than holding this straight leg on its own. And we'll take 2 more breaths. And last breath. And then come back into the center. And we're going to take the foot out of the band, and then we want to repeat the process all on the other side. So we lie onto our side. We started with our knees bent, heels in line with our butt, and then we hovered this top knee, and then we were drawing the circles on what's in front of us. So we're getting a little bit of mobility in through this hip socket here, and we're working into our lateral and posterior glutes. So we're training the glutes to draw or suck the head of the femur, maintain stability between the thigh and the glute and the pelvis. That's what the glute muscles are designed to do. But sometimes the hip flexors take over everything, and then the glutes don't get a chance to create any stability. We're going to do, this is your last one, reverse the circle, go the other way. And circle, we're going to go for another 4, 3, 2, and 1. Then we let that leg drop out. Just give it a little break for the moment. Straighten out your bottom leg, and then lift your bottom leg and lower it down. Lifting and lowering. And lift. Good. Nice. Really working into that inner thigh. Let's go for another 4, 3, 2, and 1, and lowering down. Okay, so I worked my top leg, which is my right leg. So I'm going to put that leg now in the band, and I turn onto my back. So finding a straight position that's comfortable for the hamstrings. And then I circle, it may be on the ceiling depending on how straight the leg, or it may be more where the wall and the ceiling meets. So again, just think about that connection between the thigh and your hip socket. And remember that hip socket is a ball and socket is a ball and socket joint, which basically means that the head of the femur has almost like a ball, so it's kind of like, it's like a baseball in a baseball glove. That's what the hip socket is like. And the glove is the hip socket, and the baseball is the head of the femur. Easy way to describe it. We're going to do 1 more, and then circle around, and then we reverse, going in the opposite direction. And I'm using my breath pattern again to allow the body to relax and release as I circle. Inhaling 1 half of the circle and exhaling the other half. Got another 3, 2, the last one, and circling around. Let the leg come out to the side if you've got your band. If not, place your foot onto the floor and just let your knee fall out to the side. And we breathe in and out. then slowly come back into the middle. Take your band, just pop it off behind you. We're going to go into our full roll up now, where we're coming to a seated position and rolling back down. If you're not doing the full roll up for whatever reason, we can come into some imprinting where you're rocking your pelvis forward and back. Or if you happen to have a circle, you could do some inner thigh squeezes either, where you press the circle between the knees and then you squeeze and then slowly release. So you can be working with that while the rest of us are going into our full roll up. So take the feet a little bit wider, bring the arms up to the sky, take an inhale breath here, and then on the exhale, nod the head, eye gaze looks to your knees. You want to slide your ribs into your front pockets. You can grab the back of the thighs or the side of the thighs if you need a little bit of help. So we inhale to round. Exhale, slowly reach it over. Inhale, take the hands to the sky. Exhale, nod and lift. Breathing in. And lifting. So as we're moving forward and back, we're trying to keep the same momentum from start to finish. If you're nearly there but not quite, use your leg. Take one leg up and then slowly roll forward with the leg. But if you have tight hips, and normally this is a struggle, this should be a little bit easier for you at this stage now, because we've spent most of the class opening up the hip and balancing it out with glute work. We're going to go for 2 more. And reach. And forward. And one last one. Breathe into round. Exhale to go over. Inhale, hands up. And lifting. Okay, so we're all going to come to our knees now. So we're going to kneel nice and tall. And then we're going to step one foot out in front. So let's go left foot out in front. So we're going to work here now onto this left pelvis, this left front hip socket. So I'm going to do quite a small movement. Actually, do you know what? Let's come, I think this might be better. Let's start with our 2 knees in our regular position, okay? And then what I want you to think about is doing an imprint from here. So tuck your tailbone under and really think about pushing your hips forward and then slowly release it out. So tucking the tail, releasing out. So you might want to watch me for a few of these. Now as I'm tucking the tail and then slowly releasing, I'm not like moving my body sort of way forward and back. I'm just doing quite a small movement here, and as I tuck the tailbone, you should feel the front of the hip opening out. So we're going to do that same thing now. I'm going to come at a bit of an angle if it helps. We're going to do the same thing, except we're going to come into a lunge position. So that's not helping that visual actually, so I'll stay where I was. So taking one foot out in front, into your lunge, your hips are square like we did earlier. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do the pelvic tilt, but we're going to influence this leg, the kneeling leg, whichever one that is for you. So we tuck the tailbone under, and then we slowly release it out. Tuck the tailbone under, and slowly release out. And you should feel as you tuck the tailbone under, if it's the right thigh, that's the kneeling leg, you should feel the front of that hip opening or stretching, or you should feel some sensation into that front of the thigh as you tuck your tailbone under. We're going to go for another 4. And 3. And 2. And last one, tuck under and slowly release. Well done. So that's a really tiny move. So if you're kind of thinking, I'm not really doing anything, this movement is so small, then you're doing it correct. It's quite a small movement. Okay, second foot comes out in front. Again, just take a moment to square up the hips. And then we're tucking the tailbone and then slowly releasing. And you might notice one side is tighter than the other. So my left side is tighter than my right side. And tucking under. Trying to keep the upper body nice and tall, shoulders rolling back. Okay, we're going to go for another 4, 4, 3, 2, and last one. Pull it under and release it out. Well done. Okay, now we're going to come down onto our knees. So we're kneeling onto all fours. You're going to straighten out your right leg, lift it up in line with your hip. Now bend the knee so the sole of the foot is facing the ceiling. Press the sole of the foot up an inch and then just drop down an inch. So we did this exercise in the workshop. So it's really important that you're keeping the knee in line with the hip and you're not letting the knee drop down here and then just push up to the line of the hip. So down, if you're working below the line of the hip, you're not going to work into the glute. So we want to go line of the hip, then push above that line and then back down again. Exhale, push above and you'll feel the glute firing. Make adjustments for wrists if it's needed. We're going to go for another 5, 4. Draw your tummy in to support your back. 2 more. And final one. Lift it up. Slowly release it. Drop back into the heels. You can even do a little bit of circling on the wrists if needed. And then we'll come back up again and we'll do the second side. So extending the leg long first of all. Lift it up. And then bend the knees, sole of the foot parallel. Press it up. Release it down. Tummy engaging. Glute switched on. Some of you will need to work the inner thigh of the kneeling leg so you're not swaying off to that side. So we put blocks in between the knees during the workshop. So you can just imagine the block is there and you're pressing in towards it if this inner thigh needs to stay active. We're going for another 3, 2, and 1. Well done. Dropping back into the heels again. Taking a moment there. And then slowly step your 2 hands to one side and then dropping down into that side, getting a stretch into the side body. Last breath. And exhale. Slowly run your hands to the other side. Dropping down. Breathing in. And out. Breathing in, one more breath. And exhaling out. Slowly turn yourself back around, lying down onto your back. You're nearly done, but not quite. So roll yourself down onto your mat. You're going to take your right leg, cross it onto your left leg. Take your 2 hands behind your head. And we're going to exhale, lift up and twist over to that opposite knee and then lower down. As we're twisting over, we're thinking about the rib cage. In my case, it's my left side. I'm thinking about my left ribs moving over towards my right front pocket. I'm not really so concerned about the elbow touching the knee. I'm more focused on this spinal rotation happening through my torso. So we're going to go with another 5. And 4. 3. 2. And last one, rotate and lower everything down. Well done. Let's switch sides. Opposite leg comes across, and then we twist over to that side and down. Go for another 5, 4, 3, 2, last one, rotate, and lowering down. Well done. From here, we're going to keep our knees bent, finding that neutral position in the low back. Then with the right knee, we're going to let that knee fall out to the side halfway. Straighten the leg nice and long. Turn the kneecap to the ceiling and draw it back in. We inhale out to the side and down. Knee in and draw it back through. Breathing in. And back through. Breathe in. And back. We're going to go for another 3, 2, and last one, and back in. Moving in the opposite direction now, we go out to the side and down, and back through. So again, this is another opportunity to floss out any tightness, any restriction through the hips. Inhale out and down. Exhale back through. 3 more. And back in. 2. And last one. And back in through the center. Gently draw one knee into the chest, follow with the second knee, and just do little small circles. This is creating a release into the posterior aspect of the hip, into the sacrum. So as you're circling, you're letting the legs come apart and together. Reverse the circle, go the other way. And then do one more. And then slowly bring your feet to the floor and lift yourself up into a seated position. Just gently roll back through the shoulders and you're all done. Good work, guys. Well done. So hopefully for some of you that have tightness through the hips, and there's 1 or 2 of you at the workshop, this will be helpful for you to revisit it. And if you found it helpful from tonight, try and do it at least 2 or 3 times in the next week. You can even write down the exercises as I was doing it. The one thing I would say for this, if you do have tightness true tightness in through the hips, make sure that you follow this exactly as I've delivered it. So if you just pick out exercises that you like, or easy to do, it won't make a difference into the hip socket. So the sequence is very deliberate and it's very specific about opening different aspects of the hip and then firing into the posterior area. So it creates that balance and it creates the right pull and release through the kinetic chain of the body. So have a nice evening, guys, and I won't see you now till next Monday. So you have this class to be working with for the whole week, and I'll see you the following Monday. Have a nice night.